Welcome everybody to another episode of the On Their Way Up podcast about up and coming entertainers or the up and coming days of established entertainers. My name is Spencer Gordman. I'm a stand-up comedian, and today we have a very special guest. This guy is a pitcher for the University of Nebraska baseball team. Coming out of high school, he was the top recruit from his home state of Nebraska, and he was the number 44 recruit in the nation from his 2021 class, according to Perfect Game. He was also the Gatorade Baseball Player of the Year and the Nebraska Male Athlete of the Year, aside from being a super genius and a total man rocket. Thank you for being on the podcast, Drew Christo. What's going on?
Not much, man. Good to see you again, Spence. And yeah, I think this is gonna be fun. This is a great idea for all these guys to hear stories about up and coming and from a lot of different arenas. So I'm really excited to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm excited. I got hopefully a variety of people. I got a couple comedians, actors, social media, people. I'm
Nice.
talking to a snowboarder right now. I can tell you about him a little bit later. Um, but yeah, this podcast, as you kind of brought up, really focuses on the up and coming days. So just take me back. Like, obviously, you play baseball right now. Was baseball the first sport you started playing when you were young, or kind of was it a whole plethora of sports?
Yeah, man. I did everything when I was little. I was doing probably little tyke soccer was honestly probably the first thing that I can remember doing.
I have
Four
a
or 5 years
theory.
old.
I have a theory that everybody, like 90% of people in the Midwest, played soccer at one point or another.
Oh yeah. I can almost guarantee that. I mean, it feels like you had 200 kids on the soccer field at the same time, and they're kind of just letting you go run wild. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
anybody's really playing soccer. They're kind of just running after balls. Some guys are trying to take naps on the side, but yeah, man, that was probably my first experience with sports. But then, yeah, growing up, I played it all. I did soccer for a little bit, like I said. I even did gymnastics for like a year.
Damn.
Yeah, did and then stayed with baseball, football, and basketball all the way up until this past year when made the switch to just doing baseball in college. So yeah, sports always been a big part of my life. So it's yeah.
And I think with all of them, I mean, throughout high school, you were at one point or another first team All State in basketball and football and baseball. So
Mhm.
when did you start to recognize, like, hey, not only am I 6'4", two something, like I'm like a just athletic build, but
Yeah.
when did you start to realize, hey, I think I'm actually pretty good at this stuff, especially compared to the field?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably that first experience was probably with football, and not baseball. After sophomore year at Elkhorn, I got to go to this camp in the summer in Missouri, and it was against so a lot of guys, top guys from the Midwest were there, and I kind of went in not really knowing what to expect, but ended up doing pretty well. And then the next couple weeks was getting some phone calls from some Big Ten football schools, and was like, okay, this might be able to do this for a couple more years. So that was probably the first time where I was like, okay, I can see myself playing beyond high school and at least one of these sports.
So not even in middle school when you're hitting dingers, are you like, maybe I need to step above like the rec league?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like a man child or anything, so I was probably a little bit, better than the rest of the group. But there was definitely, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I need to get it out of playing. I need to go play at the high school level when I'm in sixth grade. It wasn't ever
Yeah.
like that, but
Get an agent after like you're learning the
yeah.
ABCs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, seriously, I'm not prepping for the draft out of eighth grade or anything like that.
Right.
Wasn't the case.
So then kind of through high school, you had a lot of success in all the athletics. And it seemed that, I don't know, were there other schools or was it always kind of Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, in the back of my mind, it was probably kind of always just Nebraska. I mean, my dad played football there from '94 to '98, so
Crazy.
he was there. He was there in the glory days. So,
A little
and
bit of
growing
hardware,
up,
little bit
oh
of
yeah,
hardware around the house.
he's got hardware. Yeah, he's got some rings laying around. Nice to look at.
So
Dream of
cool.
hopefully get a couple more of those for the Huskers coming up, but looks like football's kind of a way off from that right now. But
Yeah, no kidding.
we can get to that later. But
Yeah.
yeah, so being a Nebraska fan my whole life basically was a real big influence on that. I think. I did. It wasn't like I was closed off to any other schools though. I took 5 official visits, and basically from coast to coast were all my visits, and after that took about a month, and then decided, yeah, Nebraska's gonna be it.
Were there any schools that made the decision to go to Nebraska kind of tough? Like, was it
Yeah,
close with anybody else?
yeah. So I mean, the school that probably really came in like a good second place that like really made me consider, especially during that last month after my officials were over, was Stanford. I went and
Wow.
took a trip out to Palo Alto, and it was it was something like out of a movie. Like it was their campus is like a resort, and I walked in and I was like, this does not feel like a college at all. And obviously, like Stanford, it's known for academics and stuff like that, and they've got a really good program. They've been to Omaha the last 2 years for the World Series, so that was
Nice.
probably the school that came in second. But I just I'm always been a Husker, so it was pretty easy.
Yeah, because I mean, growing up here, your dad played for them. Like, it's got to be kind of cool to, even though it's not the same sport, like to have that Nebraska N on your jersey every day. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's got
I
to be
mean that's
pretty
something.
awesome.
Yeah, we talk about like the theme of this being on their way up. Like when I was 4, that's what I was. If I had one dream, it'd be to wear Nebraska red. So it's pretty cool that I was able to do that this last year.
So then, when you did these visits, I assume they were all for baseball. So did you decide to do baseball over football first, and then we're choosing schools?
Yeah, so my junior year is really when the baseball thing kind of started to take off after junior summer. And honestly, in the baseball world right now, like that's really late. A lot of these recruits, it's crazy. Like by the time you're a freshman or sophomore, if you're in the top like 25%, like if you're going to be a D1 player, you're usually committed to a school by the time your sophomore year ends.
Wow.
It's wild how fast these guys commit. Like Nebraska, even we have 2 commits who are both in 8th grade. Like they're not even in high school, and I'm like, what is that?
Jesus Christ, they got 3 chest hairs between the both of them, and it's like they're already got
Seriously.
a scholarship.
I know it's wild, but so baseball is pretty, accelerated in terms of the recruiting circuit. But for me at that time, like I was still getting recruited for baseball, but I wanted to, delay that process because I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do football at that point. And so, yeah, probably my junior year summer is when I decided it was going to be baseball, and then ended up doing my official visits after that in the fall, and then committed like late fall for baseball.
Nice. Um, so you already like going into your senior year, you already knew like, hey, I'm gonna go play baseball. But you still decided to play football, won a state
Hmm.
championship, basketball, state runner up. I know it's pretty common when people have already committed to kind of cut everything else out at a risk of injury, really.
Hmm.
Did that ever cross your mind, or were you like, I've been playing all these sports my entire life, not playing on my senior year is kind of a joke?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more of that second one. Like, I mean, I had a couple people ask me, and a couple people maybe even say, it's kind of it might be in your best interest to not go out for football or not go out for basketball because what if you get hurt? And I was just like, if I get hurt doing that, then I get hurt doing that. But like, I'm gonna go play, especially, with my last year being able to play those 2 sports like competitively. And I think made the right decision, given what you said with those state championships and the runner ups. Those were unbelievable experiences to have with, the guys on the teams. And even if that wouldn't have been the case, there's no way I would have passed that up senior year.
And then, do you think that there's anything that those sports have given you going into baseball, or is it just kind of you played them all your life? So, yeah, I guess just talk to that experience.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a big proponent of playing as many sports as you can for as long as you can. If you like them, and if you're gonna be able to play during them, I think it's helped me so much more as an athlete, like overall. Just with like you're moving in different planes. I'm jumping a lot more in basketball than I would in baseball, and that's gonna make me a little bit more powerful and just stuff like that from an athletic standpoint. I feel like it gave me some advantages, but then also just like the lessons that I feel like I took away from it. I feel like each one kind of was a little different. Um, with football, that was probably the sport that like I loved the most and loved it first. So it really drew me to sports just in general. And then obviously, stereotypical when you think of football, you think of it's tough and it's hard hitting. So it teaches you how to be a little bit resilient and you know, aggressive mindset, which helps you when you're playing any sport. Um, and then with basketball is interesting because like I was never really that great at basketball. Like I was a good role player. I played defense and score my layups, but I really didn't like shoot threes or I wasn't dunking or anything like that. And that was fine with me. A lot of my buddies played basketball, and I probably enjoyed playing basketball, the most and maybe it was because I didn't take it as seriously as the other sports. Um,
Right.
so I think basketball just taught me how to enjoy the game and enjoy what you're doing. So I definitely think I took some things from those two that would have benefited me. That if I would have missed out on them at any time, I would have been much worse of an athlete and not had some extra tools.
Yeah, and I think especially like, and this has been the way for the past, I think, couple of decades too, but especially now, parents are like, you're doing this one sport, and
Hmm.
they put everything into, baseball, for example. Kids are playing, high school ball in the spring, and then they're playing leagues and going to camps all throughout the rest of the year. Versus, I mean, you were doing all these different sports throughout the year, and you just spoke to all the benefits. What do you think the drawbacks are to somebody who just focuses on one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I can kind of speak from a little recency bias. Like, this is my first year only doing baseball, and granted, it's at the college level, so it might be a little different experience than someone who tries to specialize earlier. But it's similar, like you were saying. You got guys who go into all these summer things in the summer, then they're playing fall ball in the fall, and then that's not even the actual season. Like that's just your downtime. So then you get to the actual baseball season, and that's been basically my last year. You show up on campus on the 20th of August, and then you fall ball until the last 2 weeks before Christmas break, and then you get back from Christmas break, and you got 3 weeks till your first game, and then literally 4 days after our season ended, up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I'll be there until the 19th of August. So
Oh
I'll
my
have
god.
one day to come back. So I mean, the cycle is unreal. Like you're playing so much. And for me, just this is my first year doing that. It's like, I can't imagine doing that since I was like in eighth grade. Like if I
Yeah.
feel like I had already done this for 4 years, I would just be almost like tired of the sport, like burned out. I feel like that's a big thing, especially you get these kids who are younger kids who are specializing, and it's usually like you said, parent driven, so it's not like their choice. And by the time some of them even get to high school, or I mean not even college, like by the time they get to their second third year of high school, they're done. They've lost the passion and the drive to do that sport. And so I think I can see that kind of being the biggest issue. And then also, you might be amazing at one of the other sports just because you were bad at it in eighth grade and you quit it. You might go through, who knows, you've seen some crazy things in puberty with high school. You
Right.
you turn into a different person, and you love that sport and you keep playing it, and who knows what it might turn out to be.
Oh yeah, and especially when it's done at such a young age, like your parents are pressuring you all through probably since fifth or sixth grade. If they
Hmm.
start sniffing that you might be good at something, then by the time you're, end of high school, you really didn't have a childhood,
Hmm.
and that was your whole life. So even if you are better at something or you want to do something else, you don't really have any experience of anything else, which kind of
Exactly.
sucks.
Exactly.
And then also, all throughout high school and now college, I assume is pretty much the same. I mean, you graduating high school, you were number one in GPA, and that was pretty much predicted out of middle school as well. People were like, "This dude is smart and he's giant and can pitch," and I was like, "All right." I think, was there any stigma about, hey, if you're this incredible athlete, you're usually not that smart, or if you're this smart, you're usually not that good at sports? Kind of that
Hmm.
stereotype. Did you ever experience that throughout any part of your life, or was it because you're around people that knew you that wasn't really a thing?
Yeah, I would say it was more the second one. You know, like middle school that I went to St. Pat's, and we had a great group of people there.
Gotcha.
And then even at Elkhorn, like Elkhorn is, great academics, and you're around great athletics at Elkhorn just from a high school standpoint too. So I think I was surrounded by a lot of people who had the similar goals to me, driven both athletically and academically, for a while. So I never like questioned that myself. And I think, that's a lot of it is due to, parents being like, you don't have to do one or the other. Like, there's no reason to pick between academics or athletics. But I feel like, yeah, a lot of kids do think that, especially now, they're like, if I'm gonna try and be amazing at sports, I don't have time to do my schoolwork. If I want to, get into an Ivy League school, then I can't do anything extracurricular activities. I just got to study, study, study. And I feel like in both cases, you're kind of selling yourself short on, your future. Like, if baseball doesn't work out, and even if it does work out at some point, I can't be 55 and playing baseball. So I've got to do something. And the same thing is true, maybe not true for the academic side, but it's like, if you commit yourself to something on the academic side and don't let yourself, have something else that, is a source of joy for your life, or something that challenges you in a different way, then you're missing out on that whole experience too. So I don't think that felt like I had to pick one or the other, but I do feel like that's a lot of kids are starting to think that, and that's just, you see it in media all the time and stuff like that. And whenever I see it, I kind of roll my eyes, because I've seen so many people who can do both at a high level that I think it's I think it's definitely a false narrative.
Well, and I think this is interesting because you and I like, okay, you're number one in GPA and I was number
Yeah,
two for like the
yeah,
longest time.
yeah,
Graduated fifth because apparently you get a 4.8 GPA your last semester of high school. Some kids got to get a 5.0 and jump ahead of you. Whatever,
yeah.
I'm not pissed about it. But for longest time we were one and two, and I think we were a very atypical one and two in
Mm-hmm.
our class because you were this
I would
three
agree.
sport varsity athlete, you know, getting committing to schools and getting drafted, which we can get to in a little bit, or at least you go going through the draft process.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy good athlete, number one, smartest kid. Number two was a dude who was going to bars on school nights since he was
Yeah,
16 and telling dick
seriously.
jokes in front of drunk adults.
Yeah,
Like, I totally agree. I think you got to have something that you care about, and I think it also makes it fends off the academic burnout as well.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, we just talked about that, athletic burnout, but it's also, like you said, if it's the same thing applies for school or anything, you get burned out and then you're not motivated to do it anymore. So whatever your distraction is going to be, if it's going to be sports or if it's going to be comedy or whatever it is, I think it's important. And I feel like, at least for me, and you can talk about it a little bit too, like that improved my academic skill too, is having something else that I was interested in and passionate about.
Oh yeah, and it like I don't know. Well, one, I don't know if this was necessarily what the intention was, but I definitely had a lot of nights of doing my homework in the back of those bars.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I'm bringing it's chemistry. It's not that hard. Like, this is fine. I can just
Mm-hmm.
do it. Um, but also just kept me honest. Like, all right, if I want to keep doing stand up, I got to make sure the grades are good.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just not like I really ever needed extra, uh, what is it called? Like convincing to have good grades. Like, that was kind of just my natural
Mm-hmm.
intuition. But definitely stand up kept me honest in that regards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was tough though, just balancing academics and how many sports you were doing, or is it just one of those things you got used to?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's not like it's a walk in the park, but and especially in college, like, college is a whole different arena, um, to step up for sure. And so you it you got to know how to manage your time and put your priorities in the right order, because there's time for you to be able to do both. But I feel like a lot of times that time is taken up by, you know, whether you're choosing to do something that you just need a relaxation for, or whatever it is. Like, a lot of times you can choose to fit things in. It's just a matter of what you're choosing. So I feel like you got to have balance in both areas, with academics and athletics, and the time you're committing to them. But I think it's possible. But yeah, it's definitely not a piece of cake.
No, that's for sure. And I think anybody who tries to excel in the classroom and outside of the classroom, it's like it is great when you're able to do both, but then also the amount of time you have for stuff outside of those two things dwindles.
Hmm.
But that's just
Yeah,
the
and see, that's why I think it's important to, when you're doing something outside the classroom, whether it's stand up or if it's sports or whatever it is, you really do got to enjoy it, because if you're going to commit that much of your time to it, then you want it to be something that you like doing. You don't want to be forcing yourself to do it and taking up that much time.
yeah, and then you have less time for schoolwork and that suffers, and then you're miserable doing your hobby or the out of school things, and then you're miserable. It just it's it's one of those things where it seems like it's tough to build up the, getting a good schedule, the work ethic, the keeping honest with yourself about working hard in school and out of school and whatever you're doing. But it
Hmm.
seems like it's something that could be pretty easy to topple, like if stuff just starts going the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely. Once you establish a schedule, if you're, following it religiously, you can stay on top of it. But yeah, it's definitely something that if you mess with can go sideways in a hurry.
Yeah, I totally get it. So now, kind of the post high school stuff. So you've been looking, or didn't you get drafted this past 2021 draft?
Yeah, so I didn't get drafted, but I went through the whole
Oh, the
draft
process.
process pretty in depth. It was cool because last year was the first year they did this MLB combine, and so obviously like NFL and NBA have a combine where you get invited and they go and evaluate you and put you through all these tests. But the MLB hadn't had anything like that just until this year, so that was pretty or last year. So I got to go out to do that, and that was in North Carolina. And that was a super cool experience, just because you're meeting all these guys who you're going to play against if you go to college, and if you don't go to college, you get drafted. You're going to be playing against them for the rest of your minor league career, major league career. So that was pretty cool. But I think the best thing about that was they had each team had a GM, the GM there, or a representative or two from the front office that they would hold interviews with players in their hotel rooms. And so that was an experience that I've never had before. You walk into some of these hotel rooms and the questions that you're asked are kind of mind blowing because they want to get to know you as more than an athlete, because if they're going to be paying you, in 10 years, if they're going to sign you to a $250 million deal, they want to know they want to know that you're the right type of guy to do it. So I think the craziest question I ever got was like, oh God, I can't remember. It was some weird like hypothetical problem solving thing that I literally had to like ask for 5 minutes to get back to him on, because it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was something with like if I was shrunken down, and it was like, I don't know, it was something weird, but the it was definitely like
That's
total
awesome.
psychological, almost just like probing at you. So that was a cool experience.
That's so funny. They're just like, all right, if you were dropped into Honey I Shrunk the Kids,
Yeah.
what?
It was
It's
something
like,
like it was like you're a miniature and you've got like this, I don't know, I think it was like a cookie or something, and you gotta move it and hide it from before like a dog. Can't remember what it was. Something weird like that.
dude, that you're like, I pitch. Do you want to see my fastball
Yeah,
again? Like this
seriously.
is
You're
what are
like,
you talking about?
I wasn't expecting this. I thought you were gonna ask me, mentality on the mound or mechanics, not this.
And then obviously you didn't get drafted. Did you expect you weren't going to get drafted because of how young you were, or kind of take me through that
Hmm.
side of it as well?
Yeah, so senior spring was really when that like started to become like super super real, because the draft is in the summertime. So that's like, first couple games against Scott and I think against West Side, there were 10 or 15 guys, scouts behind the dish watching me. So that was when it kind of like got really eye opening. And then you field all these phone calls from the regional scouts, and sometimes some scouting like directors nationally, before those couple months before the draft, and they're trying to ask you questions and feel out if you're going to be signable. That's the biggest thing in baseball, is where it differs from the NFL and the NBA is, with you being able to sign out of high school, you're kind of put in the situation where you have a choice, because do you want to go to the pros or do you want to go to college? And so a lot of the things they talk about have to deal with your signability. So if you're like, I don't want to go to college and I'll sign for whatever, then you're considered highly signable. So you might be able to get less money than someone else who's equal skill to you, but you're actually going to go and sign with the team. So they try and do all that stuff. And going into the draft, I wasn't like crazy optimistic that I was gonna get picked, just because that I knew that I was considered um, a tough sign, just because one, the value that I placed on academics and wanting to get, a college education, um, was pretty high. And also just, wanting to go to Nebraska. So I had I had a pretty steep number that I was looking for. And a couple guys got close, but I didn't want to. You have an advisor and everything, and the big thing is like you want to set your number, and then if no one gets it, if they're a cent short, you want that to be a number you're comfortable saying no to, because then you just get into a slippery slope on draft day when you just want to sign. So I had a good idea going in that the odds of me getting what I had asked for wasn't going to happen, but it was still a super fun process to go through and experience. Just because if I can go through it again in the future, I'll kind of have an idea of what to expect.
No, that's I mean, it is so smart to know what you want and to uh, be super straightforward about that and not really waver. Because I think a lot of people will just go, "Well, I want to play in the MLB and let's just do whatever I need to get it done." But you had kind of
Hmm.
the wisdom of going like, "No, I gotta do what's right for me." And I think so many people could benefit from that. That kind of
Oh
jump the
yeah,
gun.
in any arena, like I'm sure, I don't know what it's like with stand up, but like I'm sure you've had opportunities or places to go where, like, I don't know, like that might be a better spot for me, but like whether if it's my stuff isn't ready for what I want to be there, or if it's not even stand up, whatever it is, if you get an offer to do something, I feel like a lot of times people are just so pressured to commit to it just because you'd be crazy not to do it. But if you're not ready for it, and if something else is going to benefit you more, then there's no issue with saying, yeah, maybe next time, or anything like that.
Yeah, I for stand up, it's more about the location in and of itself.
Hmm.
Like New York, LA, there's a couple of other like I know some people who moved to Denver, some people who have moved to Chicago. Um, there's some like better cities for stand up around the country. New York and LA obviously being two of the biggest ones. Now
Yeah.
Austin is kind of one as well. And so the big decision is more so deciding when to move there or move to one of
Hmm.
those cities. But I mean, I'm the same way. I wanted to get a degree. I'm graduating a year early now from
Hmm.
Kansas, where I'm at, which is great because that even shortens up the time span a little
Yeah,
bit
that is
more.
nice.
And then once I graduate, then I think I'm gonna look at where I want to move. And obviously, a marketing degree is what I'm getting. So it's like I can work out of anywhere. I can
Yeah,
work out of
you
Walla
can.
Walla, Washington, if I wanted.
Yeah, you can work in New York or LA with a marketing degree. I think you'd fare just fine there with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can exactly. So then the decision's really going to be where do I want to go to stand up at,
Hmm.
um, and then but yeah, that's kind of in stand up. That's really the biggest thing is just moving because in better cities, there's more opportunities on the club level. Then there's the
Hmm.
independent level where people are running their own stuff. There's more opportunities there. Um, yeah, it's
So is
just
it? I got a question. Is it
yeah, yeah.
when like when you schedule like at a bar or at a club? Um, is it more like? And I'm sure maybe it's different, like the time in your career, like early on, maybe you've got to reach out to the people. But is it ever like they'll reach out to you? And then is it like a recurring thing that you have in, like you're there monthly, or is it kind of just pop in whenever you're available? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so for stand up, there's really two different levels. There's comedy clubs, more established. They'll bring in, you know, pick a comedian for like a weekend, and then there's the independent level, which is more the open mics where anybody can go, the weekly or the monthly shows, and those are still really great comedians, but some of them might some of them might even be working at clubs as like a host or a feature, which are the spots below the headliner, which is the person they bring in. Um, but mostly because on the independent level is really where you are at for the first big chunk of your comedy career. Um, I run my own show. I run a monthly show. It's the same place. I have like the schedule for it all. If anybody's in the Lawrence or near Lawrence, Kansas, it's called Stand Up on the Side. If you're looking for it on Instagram, it's got an orange logo with a emoji on a plate, or it's a blue logo emoji on a plate. Uh, so like I book that show, I run that show, I do the marketing for that. I know the owner, I know the bartenders. We work together, and that's really been great in showing me the business side of stand up.
Yeah, seriously, you're running your whole team, like management, everything, marketing, like you said. You're the
Dude,
whole one man show.
I wear all the hats, and it's a
Yeah.
lot, but it's fun. and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where like the work you put in is definitely what you get out. Like I ordered 1,500 business cards, and they
Dang.
all have the logo and everything on the front and all the information, and then I set up a link tree on the back with a QR code with all the information,
Hmm.
and I handed all of them out across like the 4 months that I ran the show, like in the freezing cold and like
Yeah.
the 95-degree heat, just walking around the main street in Lawrence handing them out. But then like I got a lot of people to the shows.
Yeah.
So that's one way, is running your own show or your own open mic, because you're
Hmm.
guaranteed to get stage time once a month on the show or once a week hosting the open mic. And then everybody else also kind of runs stuff like that. So people will invite you on their show, you invite them onto your show. Um, that's kind of how that side of it
Okay.
goes. And then um, I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but I want to start booking my own or getting onto shows outside of where I live.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of a big part of it is just traveling around. Like I'm in Kansas City, so go to St. Louis, go down to like Tulsa, maybe even go all the way out to Denver, up to Minnesota,
Hmm.
like all the kind of areas around. Getting connected with people who run their own shows there.
Yeah.
It's it's tough, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to do that. And
Seriously.
then you can book your own shows at bars and in other towns and small towns, and you want to bring your own equipment. I mean, there's it's literally like
Yeah. So it's kind of just whatever you're ambitious enough to do that you can kind of go after it and make it happen.
dude, that's exactly it. Literally is like it. You can go as far as you want to, but then the big thing is if you're not good, people won't have your back.
Yeah. True. Yeah. It's pretty cutthroat, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's if you get a good community around you, it's all worth it. Yeah. So, kind of as you were talking about earlier, like the business side of trying to go pro and playing baseball, it seems pretty
Hmm.
extensive, and stand up. It's I mean with anything, it's
Oh yeah.
once you reach a level with what you love, it
Yeah.
starts
It's
to become less of
professional.
a
Yeah.
hobby.
Yeah. It turns into professional, and they want to make sure you're a professional, regardless of what it is.
Do you think that takes away from the enjoyment of playing, or is it just the natural progression?
I think it's somewhat natural, and it's just similar to with anything. Like if you're going to college and you're getting an accounting degree, you're gonna have a different mindset in your interviews for college than you did in your interview for Dairy Queen. It's similar, it's just maybe magnified a little bit because whether it's if it's professional sports, if it's on a national stage compared to a normal job, but it's similar. I feel like the step up and becoming a professional, whatever that means. But um, I feel like it's somewhat natural, and I feel like that's when you get to the point where you do truly have to love what you're doing, whether it's stand up or if it's baseball, because you have to be able to be a professional about it. And like if that's going to be your livelihood, and you're talking about all the time you have to put into it, like you're not just doing that for no reason, especially if it's something that's more unconventional at that higher level, where you know, and if it's even like if you're just talking about the pay of something like for minor league, and I'm sure starting a career in stand up is the same as minor league baseball. I mean, minor league baseball guys, you're getting paid maybe $2,000 a month, and everyone you look at and you see the MLB contracts, and you're like, oh, it'd be so amazing to be an MLB player, and you realize that the odds of you one getting picked to be a minor league player are insanely low, and then the fact that you have to go through all those different levels and the years it takes just to get up to the professional level, and once you're there you usually have to get 3 years before your rookie contract is up, and that's when you make your first $1 million check. So you definitely got to love it, to be able to commit to that professional lifestyle and something like that.
So, by the way, just to quantify, you said it's probably minor ball is probably similar to a stand up. So, well, Grant, I think at a because I've been doing stand up for about 3.5 years now. So
Hmm.
I guess playing baseball like that would kind of be all through high school. You're probably not making really any money out of it,
Yeah.
and then you start. But I've done stand up for about 3.5 years. I've made about $670.
Yeah, so there might be a little discrepancy there.
Yeah, a little less. I've probably lost at least that much money just in gas alone. Like
Oh
this,
yeah, I'm sure you're driving all these places.
dude. I mean, literally
That's
like
wild.
because I go to school in Lawrence, Kansas, and so I'm in Kansas City 2, 3 nights a week minimum. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's 45. That's an hour and a half of driving just there and
Mm-hmm.
back. And then if I go and do two shows in a night, or go to an open mic and then go to a comedy club or something, then it's like 2 hours driving. I mean, it's yeah, it gets up
That's
there.
ridiculous.
Um, yeah, it's definitely can't can't do it for the money. I'll say that for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, or does the business side of it ever affect you on the field? Do you feel like?
I feel like that's something that this year in college was definitely the first time where I might have felt that, like it's a winning is it matters here. Like it's your coach's livelihood. It's a big part of, the school and athletics. Like it's more than, just representing your high school at this point or representing your college. It's a full on job essentially. And, you feel that a little bit just because it's an experience that you haven't had before. If you struggle in your first couple batters, you might not get the chance to feel out, the rest of the inning and then be out there for the next couple. I mean, it's cutthroat. Like you got to win and you got to win now. So it's definitely something that, was new to me this year. But it's just like anything else. You just got to adjust for it. And I think, after going through a whole year of it now, going into this next season, it's something that, you're a little bit more prepared for and ready for, and you won't be as, surprised when the stakes are that high.
And how do you feel like the balance has been between that and the developmental side of it?
Yeah, so I mean, college baseball is tough because you've really got two coaches who are focused on developing your players. That you've got your head coach, but he's more just acting as a management figure for everybody, for the coaches and for everything else. And so you've got, for example, my pitching coach. He's got 22 pitchers that he has to work with, and then also he has to worry about who's starting which games, the management of the starters and the relievers coming into the games and stuff like that. So a lot of it is on your own, and it's nice that they're there to help you if you have questions and stuff. Like they have information and they have stuff that they're going to give you up front. And it's really up to you to determine how far you want to take that. You can just take what they give you and be fine with that, and that's going to be that's good enough in most cases, because they're good at their job and they know what to give you. But if you want to run with it and dive deeper into mechanics and everything like that with a coach, it's able to be done, but it's just harder because they're stretched so thin with in so many different ways.
Yeah, versus at like the high school level, you have a handful of pitchers, and it's
You've
definitely
got
more
maybe eight
focused.
guys
Right.
that are throwing on a regular basis compared to 22.
Yeah, and then the focus is, obviously on winning, you want to win, but it's more so on making sure that you produce good players. Do you think it's
Exactly.
more player focused in the high school level?
I think so. Every place wants to win, but like you said, it's a there's no consequence for not winning. Like, I mean,
Right.
you might get fired if you're a coach, but like you're not getting paid to be a baseball coach in high school. You're paid to be a teacher, whatever you do.
Right.
So the need to win isn't driven by like someone's livelihood or anything like it kind of is in college and levels above that.
Do you see people when they make that jump to the college level or to the minor league level, um, that can't handle that pressure of that switch to how strong the professional side of it is?
I think so. I mean that happens probably more often than you think with guys, being, pro ready. I think is a big thing that, that, like I talked about in those interviews, is what they're trying to determine. Like, can you handle when you fail? Because in any sport, and especially in baseball, you're gonna fail and you're gonna fail often. And so, can you handle that? Can you see it as something that's not like a finite end of your career, end of your success, but something to push you in a better direction? There's a lot of things that determine your ability to handle adversity. And so I think that's something that happens really commonly is you get to that level, and whether it's because you've had successes in your past and you haven't experienced that yet, or if it's just because you experience it for the first time and then you're like, yeah, this is really not what I want out of this, and then you're
Hmm.
just done with it. I feel like that happens a lot, and which is why they have so many leagues and of the minor leagues, because they want to see if you can handle that. I mean, those guys play 150 games and just as many days. I think, up in the Northwoods, that's what they're trying to simulate. This summer league that I'm playing in, they're trying to simulate what a minor league season is like.
Oh yeah.
And so we play 72 games in 79 days. So we we get like 6 off days, and so these are 2 of my off days, and every other day it's a game. So they want to see you go through the grind, and they want to see you go through the ups and downs, because when you're doing that much in that time period, you're going to have them.
So I guess one kind of last question, then we'll wrap it up. So looking forward, obviously you're going to be playing at Nebraska this upcoming year. Um, what does the scenario look like, or what are the couple of scenarios in which you end up going pro and signing that contract?
Yeah, so I mean, this next year for me is just going to be about getting game time. I feel like, my freshman year, I really didn't play that much, and I thought I was going to. So that was a big thing to kind of deal with, and kind of have to take that as the season went along. But I think it was really good for me. It was kind of, a wake up call, and, you're not in Elkhorn anymore. It's these guys come from all over the country, and they were the dudes at their school too. So the step up is something that you're not always ready for. But I think this last season definitely opened my eyes, and then this summer playing has been great because I've got to get back to playing and get a little confidence back. So headed into this season, it'll just be about getting innings, having a little bit of success, and then hopefully next summer. Hopefully I'm not playing next summer, because that means I pitched a lot in the spring. Um,
Right.
but there's a league out in the Northeast. It's called the Cape Cod League, and that's the premier league for collegiate guys to go to. So hopefully the same time next year, I'm up there making a couple starts, and then your junior year is when you become eligible again. Well, either if you're 21, which is usually people's junior year, or if you've played 3 years at the college level, then that's when you're draft eligible again after high school. So
Got it.
hopefully, in 2 years, that's the draft year, and that would be the time for when that pro opportunity would be back around.
Nice. It's all kind of just getting yourself ready for when that your draft year comes up that you can take advantage of that.
Yeah, yep. And it's nice because going through the process the first time out of high school, me compared to someone who didn't go through that process, where they might have some unanswered questions, they can look back at the scouting reports that they did on me in high school and maybe fill in some blanks that someone, wasn't able to get eyes on them that early. So it's nice to kind of have gone through that experience as a little, backup, as if they need to figure anything out or anything like that, they have that available to them.
Yeah, and you've seen that, if you give a munchkin a cookie question, like you're familiar, you know your way
Yeah,
around.
exactly. Yeah, I've talked to these guys before, and the same guys that will be talking to me hopefully again in a couple of years. So it definitely something that would had benefited me, even though nothing came out of it last year.
That's awesome. It's kind of cool to have like, an end point. Sometimes when you have a goal, it's more so the qualitative aspect of when I get to this level, but with that you kind of have a hard date that you can work towards.
Yeah. That hopefully that summer, that junior year summer, is a good. It'll be a busy summer because, like you, I'm on that 3 year plan.
Oh, you are?
Um, yeah, I tried to do that just because, like, if I were to get drafted my junior year and coming back for a year just to get one more year to get a degree would suck.
Yeah, I was just
But
about to ask that. Like that must be a pain in the ass.
yeah, so, but yeah, I also want to do, like, right now my plan is to go to med school, hopefully. So, like,
Wow.
that junior summer is when I would take the MCAT as well. So a
Jesus.
lot of things going on, but
Yeah,
hopefully it's a eventful summer.
you're getting drafted and you're getting into med school. I mean, that sounds
Yeah, that'd be
wild.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll see where the next 2 years takes us.
Dude, best of luck going forward. I think everybody at our high school kind of sees you as like if there's one guy who's going to make it big, it's definitely going to be Drew Christo. So, um,
Spencer Gordman,
yeah,
or
I
both.
know.
Who knows?
Yeah, the
Maybe I'm out in 15 years. I'm out playing a game in New York, and afterwards I come see you at the top comedy club up there. That'd be pretty cool.
dude, honest to God, we just because I mean, both of us will be traveling all the time if we both
Oh yeah,
make it to the levels we want to. So,
exactly.
dude, absolutely. And if you ever want to be back on this again, if you have anything you want to, I know if you really have anything to promote in athletics, like we have,
Yeah,
look at the
probably.
show, look at the podcast, and you're just like, I'm going to be playing more baseball in Nebraska.
Yeah,
We'll go see a Nebraska baseball game, and hopefully
yeah,
you
yeah.
can
Come
catch Drew
out
on the
and watch.
mound.
Yeah, come out and watch. Great environment at Haymarket.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, sold it right there perfectly.
Oh yeah.
If you're looking for my stuff, comedy, my name is Spencer Gordman, Spencer underscore Gordman on TikTok and Instagram, and then just my name on Facebook. But more importantly, the podcast On Their Way Up, Their is how you spell there for those of you who are still learning the ABCs. Uh, it's a big orange logo with white lettering and an arrow. Look at for it wherever you listen to podcasts. Obviously, you're listening to it right now, and then go follow the Instagram and the Twitter for more updates. And we're on YouTube if you want to watch this as well and see Drew's beautiful face and my I woke up too recently face. So and on Spotify, I think there should be video on there as well. So just yeah, follow and subscribe so you can get updated on whenever other podcasts are. Hopefully, should be lining up. Aiden, a mutual friend of ours who plays
Oh yeah,
football at Nebraska as well. So
that'd be cool.
that would be interesting. But yeah, thank you for taking your time on your couple of days off and sitting down with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I enjoyed getting to learn more about stand up and hearing where you're at and how you're doing and sharing, the same for me. So this was fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always good to catch up. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.